Hello and welcome to Comic Culture. I'm Terrence Dollard, a professor in the Department of Mass Communication at UNC Pembroke. My guest today is Ray Anthony Height, the creator of Midnight Tiger. Ray, welcome to Comic Culture.
Thanks for having me, Terrence. It's awesome to be here. Thank you.
Now, I had the pleasure of looking at one of the copies of Midnight Tiger, and what struck me is that it's sort of an updated Spider-Man, where you have a young African-American gentleman who is in high school, who's been given these great powers, and he's trying to do the right thing, even though there's a lot of influences in his life that aren't necessarily positive. When someone compares your creation to Spider-Man, how does that make you feel? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
It's an awesome thing. I think that if my character can be compared to one of the mainstays of comic culture, what better thing can that be? As long as it's like, oh, this is an exact copy of Spider-Man, which it isn't. Once people start reading it, of course, they're going to know, hey, has that old feel of kind of the Bronze Age Spider-Man kind of thing, but this is completely different. That's great. But on initial pickup, if that's the impression you got, then I'm doing something right.
Well, I think it's interesting when you talk about the feel that you're trying to capture. I mean, a lot of comics now are very dark, very negative, and there's a real sense of fun in the pages that you've put together. Now, we talked a little bit before we started the show. You are the artist and the plotter, and you have someone who helps you with the script. Could you explain a little bit about your creative process and how you put the book together?
Okay, this is going to be fun. So initially I created, I'm trying to think, how far do I go back for this? Midnight Tiger was actually a concept that me and a popular writer at Image kind of came up with that I won't say, and it just didn't click well. We clicked great. I mean, he's an awesome friend. He's gone on to do bigger and better things, TV and other comics, but that was one of the things that we wanted to do, and it just didn't happen to work out. And he tells me, you know what? You take it and run with it. Now, I already had something that I was already planning, but when this opportunity with the name, basically the name, and I've already done the costume design. So I said, well, this is great. Love the costume design. Let me hold on to it. Then I did this book called Icons I was working on. And it was a Teen Titan-esque kind of thing. But I wanted it to really kind of be focused on one particular character, someone who was new to the whole superhero crime-fighting aspect of things. And Midnight Tiger happened to fit that bill perfectly. So he became the focus, but I still kept the title Icons. Well, it's kind of, the title Icons was cool. No, I'm surprised nobody else had used it. And then, of course, I spoke too soon because I think Jim Lee ended up doing something called Icons. And I said, well, I don't want to use that, even though it's completely different from what he's doing. And I just decided, well, let's just make it self-titled. What the book is about. It's about this character in his life and joining this team, the Icons. Now, my process was I plotted about 30 issues. Pretty ambitious. It's there's quite a story in there, and this is all during the time I was doing work for Marvel and stuff like that, and I wasn't sure how I was going to go about it, self-publishing or what have you. And here's the thing: it's tough just to draw, but to draw and write and do other things, that's a whole new ball of wax. And I've written things before, small things, but this is, a big story. So I thought I'd enlist the help of a very, very talented friend of mine to help me go about scripting it. And, enter Mr. Dwayne Feenstra, who has an awesome book called Arrow Girl that's out right now. A little plug for him. He and I got together, and it was very difficult for me to find someone that I jive with that had the similar way I wanted to go about this story. And Dwayne was pretty much the closest, so we just worked that out, and I gave him all my plots, what's supposed to happen between, issues 1 and 3, 4 and 6, and this and that, and we kind of mapped out, how that whole thing worked.
Well, here's a question for you. Now, you said that you'd done work for Marvel and DC, and I'm just wondering, as a creator, when you work in someone else's shared universe, how does that impact your work compared to creating your own universe that you don't have any rules or any, let's say, editorial or corporate guidelines that tell you what you can and can't do with a character?
That's an excellent question. All right, I guess that's why you're the professor. Um,
Or
so,
Marianne, your choice.
oh, well, let's go with Gilligan. I'm Gilligan. So, okay, so I guess the thing is that working for Marvel has been a dream of mine since I was a kid. But I'd always created my own characters and my own comics since I was a kid too. I actually released an ash can. I don't know. I actually did a panel recently where no one knew what an ash can was.
Oh, that makes me feel old.
Oh, I was on stage, right? I felt terribly old, and then I had to spend 10 minutes explaining what that was. But anyway, we did that. I did that when I was 19. It was my own character. Actually, one of the characters is in so hilarious because the character that's in that ash can is actually the foundation of where Midnight Tiger kind of came from, and the final version that you see in the book. But at any rate, working for Marvel was my dream. And I've always, I used to say all the time, and this is hilarious. I said, I'd kill to work for Marvel, even if I had to work on Howard the Duck. I worked on Howard the Duck 3 times.
Wow.
So I actually put that into the universe. Thank you, universe. But I also worked on Spider-Man a few times, Spider-Girl. And working, I was kind of going on motivation and fuel of, wow, I'm actually working at Marvel Comics. So I almost didn't care what the content of the story was. I was just happy to be, playing with their toys. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, hey, this is, if I can do this and learn all I can on this professional level from the corporate comic side, what can I do with the information that I've gathered on my own comics? And that helped so much, reading the script formats of, the writers that I've worked with there and the beats and all that kind of stuff. It just absorbed information. And I also was taught a lot by a friend of mine, Kevin Grevious. He kind of taught me really the professional side and getting things together and story format. And he actually let me know, it's like, you could do this yourself. So that kind of gave me the confidence. Now, bringing that back to my own playground, I thought, well, here are things that they're doing in Marvel because they have to follow a certain structure. They can't do or address certain things blatantly. They have to, they have to maintain a certain, way of doing things. I could do whatever I want. And one thing that I did like, I've always loved, is the fun-loving side of comics, the comics that I grew up with. And I wanted to bring that back because I kept hearing that a lot. Like, oh, comics aren't fun anymore. They're too dark. And I was like, well, I have a few ideas. I'm going to do that. And also there are things that I see I would have done as a writer at Marvel that, of course, I know they won't do. Mix different genres, which they kind of do, but not all out. They never have Spider-Man learn magic and actually use it.
Right.
I've always there. So those are the things that I learned. Like, people forget that in DC Comics, Batman actually knows magic, but he never uses it to his advantage. I don't know why. So those are some of the things that I'm going to add in Midnight Tiger that the corporate comics might not do to maintain character integrity.
And when it's your own story that you're trying to tell, you get to pretty much, it's your own concept, your own plot, it's your own, well, basically everything.
Yeah.
So when you work for a company like Marvel, they have a book that has to come out in a certain number of days. When you're working for yourself, how do you keep the motivation going to get that book done? And if you're doing self-publishing or if you're going through Action Lab, which you're doing now, how do you keep the motivation going to get 20 some odd pages done in a month?
It's insane. It's insane. I mean, well, here's the big difference. Doing your own comics it's a risk for many reasons. You don't have the motivation of a paycheck when you work for the corporate comics. Every couple of weeks you turn in pages, you get paid, and that's keeping you going. I mean, it is fun. Our job, is fun, but it's still a job. And to do it for yourself is so much more difficult because your level of discipline has to, go up, and you're in charge of everything. There's no one who's going to, adjust things so you can finish. You have to figure out what's going to work. I mean, the Action guys have been amazing and definitely understanding because, like I had mentioned earlier, I said that I am the self-proclaimed Joe Madureira of the Action Lab group. I had some issues to work through, and it's a lot of stuff's been going on behind the scenes, but I'm still drudging along, and I keep myself motivated when I see other guys out there putting their books out, and I know I have a story to tell, and that's another thing that keeps you motivated because it's clearly, and the feedback from fans, like when the first issue hit and they see other things, they're like, I want more. I want more. That feels awesome because you're like, well, I'm going to give you more then. I'm going to sit at this desk and I'm going to give you more. But that's really it. I stay motivated mostly because I want to tell the story, and there are people out there who want to read the story and are interested in the character. They want something different. So I think that's it. I think that's pretty much what I do. I mean, my peers are awesome because they're putting out great books. I don't know if you've seen, I'm sure you have seen many other books from Action Lab, and they're great. I mean, to be, a new publisher at this level, and, they're already in the top 20 publishers and they haven't been around very long. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, that was something I was going to bring up. I mean, Action Lab is a relatively new publisher, a small publisher compared to DC, Marvel, or Image. And as a creator, why not go to Image with Midnight Tiger? Why come to Action Lab?
Well, there's a story there. I actually did go to Image with Midnight Tiger, and there was someone there behind the scenes who was a friend of mine, and he placed my pitch on their desk, and he kept telling me, oh yeah, Eric Stevens really likes this, he loves your art, and he's going to get back to you. Well, months kept going by and I never heard anything. All I knew is that he liked what he saw. So after a while, and it's kind of kismet because I'm looking at friends that I know, like Jamal Igle with Molly Danger, and Jeremy Dale with Skyward, and these guys were at Action Lab before I got there, and I was thinking, wow, these are creators of note, of popularity. People are aware of them, and they're at Action Lab. Something's going on at Action Lab because, why aren't there books at Image as well? I mean, Jamal just got off of a nice run on Supergirl. Very popular artist. Jeremy Dale, he's all over the place. G.I. Joe, just great stuff. So something was going on at Action Lab that I was curious about. And I just, on a humbug, happened to put that out there on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Turns out, I get this, tweet back from Action Lab. Like, oh, yeah, hey, you can come on over here and have your book over here. Little did I know, a couple of the staff there backed the book on Kickstarter. So they've been watching this for a while. And then I found out the biggest thing. Kevin Freeman, who he and I worked together very briefly at Ape Entertainment. And come to find out, he is the president of Action Lab. And it just kind of rolled on there because they came to me and I came to them at the same time, kind of, and it just worked. I mean, I trusted them. There were people I trusted that were already working with them. So it just worked out great. And then now I'm kind of like, anything I ever do, I'm going to go to Action Lab. I'm just not even going to deal with Image, because it's a great home.
Well, what I'm impressed most about Action Lab, and I know it sounds like we're, promoting Action Lab quite a bit, but the books themselves, if you were to look at them compared to a Marvel or DC, the printing quality is the same, the artwork is the same high level, and I guess it was my experience when we had the comic boom of the 90s, you would see a lot of these publishers open up, and some of the books were just, I think drawn by kids in an art class in the third grade, and they'd put, Dark Claw or something on the title, and it would sell a million books, and that would be it. So it's the quality that comes out of Action Lab is, I mean, the caliber of talent that they're employing is quite impressive.
Yes.
I did want to touch back on, you said you left a pitch for Midnight Tiger. I'm just wondering, in comics, what sort of material do you leave with the publisher to try to get them interested in your concept?
Every publisher has their own submission guidelines, and it's best if you even want to be considered, follow the rules. Give them exactly what they ask for, if not, a little bit more. Follow the guidelines, because if you're outside the guidelines trying to be, quote unquote different, that may not work out for you. So, the thing is, with Image, I think they wanted 5 pages of story, at least inked, mock cover to show, if you knew what you were doing as far as advertising with the cover is concerned, and synopsis of the story, and a cover letter introducing yourself as a creator. That's it. That's all they asked for. I think I ended up giving them 5 or 6 pages of story, and it was full color. It wasn't just inked. I had already worked for Image on Noble Causes and Wild Guard before. So I don't know. I mean, and I think I've spoken with Eric Stevenson about, 2 or 3 times. He actually stopped at my booth at New York Comic Con one year. And, it just kind of, I thought, well, it's stacked in my favor, at least. I mean, I don't have a name like Bendis or, Moore or anything, but, I'm trying to make my way up the ladder. And that's what I thought. I thought it was going to work out. And it was okay. I mean, no hard feelings whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I'm probably, happier than I would have been, but yeah, that's pretty much what you have to do to put a pitch together. It's very similar with Action Lab. Mm-hmm. They just want to see what you're bringing to the table. And they are, just like you said earlier, Professor, the quality. That's one thing that I think a lot of the new publishers have missed is, the quality. It has to be held to a certain standard if you're trying to compete for shelf space.
Right.
So, it's best to try to gather the best quality projects from the pitches that are offered, so that, it will not only uplift the creator, but the company and the publisher that the books are coming out of. Makes sense.
Okay. Well, that's interesting, because I teach a screenwriting course here, and one of the things we did was work on a treatment where you would try and get your script into someone's hands so that they could have a sense of, what you are trying to sell to them as a finished screenplay or something along those lines. So it's always interesting to hear how a related industry, and I would say comics and film are related, especially if you've seen
Absolutely.
Any movie out of Hollywood in the last 10 years. It's just interesting to see the parallels and the similarities.
I actually like to give some advice on that too.
Okay.
It's some extremely valuable. Again, I told you I learned a lot from Kevin Grievous, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's the creator of the Underworld series.
Oh, okay.
So he told me, really one of the things that I thought, it's like, oh wow, you're putting together these books, you're trying to get your stuff into a producer's hands or somebody that you want a film to be made. If you plop a script, it's just, text down. Most people are not as excited unless, you have a certain, namesake or whatever to just read your books. If you're a nobody and you're plopping something down, like, well, I'll let this sit with the rest of the other stuff. Do a comic. Comic gives the producers everything you want. They have the story, they have the visuals, and a sense of the beat of what you're going for. If you're doing that and you pop that into a producer's hands, they're more inclined to read it right then and there, because that's the thing about comics that it's awesome. Although the visuals will catch your eye, once you start reading, that's what keeps you there. So that would be the thing. That's, what Kevin taught me. And actually, my wife is a screenwriter right now. And we're doing a couple of projects that we plan to put in the producer's hands in comic form.
It's interesting. So I should recommend that my students take some sort of art class.
Or get with a great artist.
Now, I did want to ask about your art process. Are you using digital tools, or are you using the old, pencil, paper to create your pages?
Currently I'm using a combination of both. I have decided, cutting cost, and I thought would cut time, but actually has increased time, is I'm inking the book myself. I usually do thumbnails, and then I move on to tighter layouts. My thumbnails are usually 2 inches by 3 inches. And on a good day, I can thumbnail an entire issue in really a day, and then the layout, the more detailed layout processes, I do about 5 or 6 layouts on a good day, and until I got everything done. So after that, I scan it into my computer. I add in, if I don't do it already by hand or traditionally, I add in my perspective. Kind of spot the solid black areas in shadow, and then I change it all into blue via Photoshop. And I have a Brother printer that prints out on 11 by 17. So at that point, what I'll do is I'll print that out, and then if I'm just doing pencils, I'll just pencil tightly over my light blue layout on that size. But if I'm inking, what I'll do is I'll print that out, and then I'll ink, but I'll ink a lot of the holding lines and some of the background. And then I'll rescan my inks and add solid black and details in the backgrounds and little cool details with Manga Studio. So I do a combination of both.
And when you do the inks, is it on just regular printer paper, or are you like?
Oh, it's usually on either Strathmore or some kind of Bristol, but usually it's some kind of Strathmore. Actually, I've reverted back to using, Eon artboards, and they're really probably the best artboard you can use in this industry right now. They hold ink well. It's just, it's a beautiful piece of paper. So that's what I went back to.
Okay. And when you do the art, are you doing the coloring yourself?
No, no. I actually, well, that's not necessarily true. Um, I am doing. I did a color cover. I will color the cover, although.
So for a cover, you'll do the coloring as well as the pencils and inks?
Yes. I'll do the whole thing, and if I know that I'm coloring, I'll do everything digitally. Um, but all the interiors, they're done by Paul Little. I don't know if our last transmission caught that.
Okay. And you had mentioned something before about meeting various people at different Comic-Cons. I think you said New York Comic-Con.
Yes.
How important are the cons to professionals such as yourself to make those connections, or is it kind of like to be seen and see that sort of thing?
I always tell people that's half the job. Most artistic types, and I hate to generalize, but let's just go put it out there. Um, Not that social. It's kind of hard because we spend a lot of our time creating things, and the networking and being out in the public. Not everybody can do that effectively. So, but it is, you have to learn it if you want to get anywhere. Talent isn't. I hate to say it, but talent isn't everything. I know a ton of immensely talented guys, and they are just shy. They're just super shy, and they just can't talk to people, so they get managers, and which I think are good and bad as well, because they don't always convey what your preferences are. But if you can speak and talk to other people and network for yourself, that moment at a convention is invaluable. Because they're connecting who you are with your work. So now, you're one and the same. There's not this disconnect because there's guys out there who are awesome. They're super talented, but they're complete jerks. So, you're kind of like, this guy's awesome, but do I really want to work with him?
Right.
Is it worth it? And, that's usually the editor's call or, the publisher's call. But then there's guys who, let's say, maybe not as good as that awesome jerk, but they're really good, but they're amazing people. They're
Mm-hmm.
just the nicest, sweetest people, and they're cooperative, and they take direction. You want to work with that person.
Okay, well,
So,
I've just been shown that we have about a minute left in the show. I wanted to ask you one more question about the cons. A lot of people will sell original sketches or do commission work. How much of when you do a convention sketch or if you do a commission, how much does that support? I'm not asking for dollar figures, but is that a substantial part of an artist's annual income?
it can be. It depends on you. It depends on your demand as an artist, and it also depends on your production and stuff. But it's part of the job. And
Okay.
I know guys who can work a convention and pay for every convention that year, for one. And I know guys that are in the hole every convention they go to because they just can't get enough requests. So you have to figure that out.
Okay. Well, we have run out of time. I'd like to thank Ray Anthony Height of Midnight Tiger for speaking with us today. And I'd like
Thank
to
you.
thank you for watching Comic Culture. Hope to see you again next time.